You can do all the affirmations in the world. I am wealthy, I am confident, I am disciplined, and still feel like nothing's changing. Not because you're doing it wrong, but because you're starting from the wrong place. Today I'm sharing a conversation with a friend that became one of the clearest examples I've seen of why manifestation, identity work, and action break down at the exact same point. If you've ever felt like you're doing the inner work but still not moving forward, this is for you. Alright, let's call my friend Jane. Now Jane has been working on shifting a really long-standing pattern. It's not laziness, but it probably looks like procrastination on the surface. It's that place where you know what to do, but you do everything else but that, right? Maybe you play mahjong, gin rummy, Sudoku, Royal Match on your iPhone. Maybe you find yourself lost down that TikTok rabbit hole or scrolling endless YouTube shorts on your desktop. Heck, you might even go and do chores around the house instead of work that you're meant to be doing. Right? One of the stories that Jane shared with me many times actually is how when she was a child she used to like to read comics when she was meant to be doing her chores or her homework. And what she'd do is she'd hide her comic book inside the pages of her textbook so no one could see what she was doing. When she got caught, she recalls being called a waste of space or a waste of time or some other wording like that by her father, by her siblings. And the thing is, it was clear that this label had stuck. So I said to her, well, let's rewind this. Let's go back to where the story actually started. So I asked her to describe her first memory, and she said to me, well, I'm in my bedroom, I'm lying on my bed, I'm meant to be doing my maths homework, but instead I'm reading my comic book. And, anytime I have something important to do, I'll do something else. I just won't take action. Now, what was fascinating was her language. And when she described reading the comic book, she was present, associated, very specific. Then suddenly, boom. She jumped from being present in the moment of the story to a global description about herself. I just don't take action or do anything else. This is classic survival strategy. It's the moment where consciousness shuts the door, the red light comes up on the dashboard, and full protection mode is activated. Now, keep in mind, all of this is happening unconsciously. And this is why, if you're a coach like me, AI can never replace you. It's picking up these key distinctions in the moment that make our services absolutely invaluable to others. So I pointed it out to her and I said, do you notice how you're present in the comic book and then you're not? I said, we need to explore what your survival instincts are trying to protect, because that's all that's happening here. It's like they're shutting the door. What's behind that closed door? We need to know what that is, what it's stopping you from seeing before we can make change. So I said to her, well, let's make sure you feel completely safe first. And I walked her through a process where she could observe the memory from a distance, like watching a movie of herself watching a movie, right? Totally safe, totally protected. And I asked, well, what happens next? And this is where the gold was revealed. She said, I'm pathetic. I'm a waste. I'm a waste of time. I'm a waste of space. Oh. Now here's the distinction. She always believed that belief came from her father or her siblings calling her that, but it didn't. That identity wasn't imposed, it was chosen. At some point, her younger self decided, this is who I am. And you see, once an identity is formed, the world simply reflects it back to you. See, life doesn't happen to you, life happens through you. People didn't make her feel pathetic or a waste. They were simply mirroring the signal that she was already broadcasting. So I said, well, let's change the meaning you've coded that moment in time to be. You see, from the child's eyes at that time, pathetic and a waste of space made sense. She wasn't doing what she was meant to do. I'm pathetic. I'm a waste of space. But from an adult, With more experience and knowledge and perspective, I asked what else could have been happening there. Now, Jane grew up in a family of 6 on a busy farm with constant noise, constant demand, and her siblings were very active, robust people. But Jane was wired differently to all of them. And what I channeled when I was doing this work with her was the comic books weren't avoidance of the things that she needed to be doing. They were actually regulation for her. You see, her spirit needed space. They needed quiet time. She needed time to decompress and, kind of like fill her cup back up again. One of the key things that I like to say is natural success is achieved when you honour your nature rather than overriding it. Some people will refuel through action. I'm often energized by being around lots of other people, but other people like Jane, they refuel through withdrawal, through quiet time, through that quiet hibernation space. You see, Jane's strategy that she was running back then wasn't wrong, but it was misunderstood. And once it was misunderstood, she then took it all and placed it in the shame bucket. When Jane was 8 years old, she tried to help her father build a fence on the farm, but she wasn't strong enough to lift the timber posts. And she heard her father mutter under his breath, "Oh, she's a waste of time." And it's a vivid memory she has etched in her mind. You see, that moment was created by the identity that she had claimed earlier. I am pathetic. I am a waste of space and time. And her father was simply mirroring it back to her. Now, as she grew up, that identity was reinforced time and time again until it became so unconscious for her, she didn't even know it existed anymore. And this is what most people miss. You see, Jane has recently been doing a lot of work on herself. Affirmations, embodiment. I am wealthy. I am healthy. But nothing was landing. Her results weren't changing. Now, why is that? Because the origin point was still, I'm pathetic, I'm a waste. You see, when she got caught reading the comic book, the next thing that showed on the screen of her mind was her saying to herself, I'm pathetic, I'm a waste of time. She claimed both those statements as truth for her. And today, in her present reality, because she was unaware that they even existed, they were behind her unconscious survival patterns. She was really struggling to create what she wanted in her life. She was running a structure that gave her results to confirm she was pathetic and a waste of time and space. Now, in my Momentum Method program, I talk a lot about orientation. And what we're talking about here is not what you're thinking, but where you're thinking from. You see, a good analogy of this is 2 planes can take off from the exact same runway at the exact same airport, but 1 degree of difference at the start means they land in completely different places. Now for Jane, she could be taking all the action in the world, but so long as her origin point was stuck in the identity of I'm pathetic and I'm a waste of space and time, then so shall her results be. However, when we revealed the true identity that was running, we were able to recode the entire experience. So instead of it being a childhood memory with devastating negative self-talk, we were able to recode it to an adult's perspective of her spirit needing space, quiet time to decompress and refill her cup. That recode was all that was needed to shift the entire origin point and identity. So after we did the work, I asked her, okay, so who are you now? And this is where her language changed immediately. It was no longer, I am wealthy. Instead, she said, wealthy I am. Now, the energy frequency of that shift, that small shift, was massive. You see, in that moment, she was claiming wealth as her birthright, and she was radiating it. So instead of pointing at it, she was now living from it. And within days, Jane said to me that she noticed in herself something shift. In the morning when her alarm went off, instead of reaching for her phone to scroll, she got up and got into her day. When she was unsure, and this was the big thing for her, when she was unsure of what to do when she was sitting at her desk, Normally, she'd start, just procrastinating, thinking about other things to do, and then she'd pick up her phone and start playing mahjong. Well, instead, she said she just found herself asking questions from her friends, from her colleagues, from her partner. And what happens here is that her identity shift had reorganised her behaviours naturally. She didn't have to do anything, just everything shifted to align with the new identity that she had recoded in herself. And this is what I call conscious level creations. I am isn't a future state, it's not a goal. I am is being. When the origin point shifts, behaviour naturally reorganises itself to match it. There's no force, there's no discipline battles, and there's no self-sabotage because there's nothing to resist anymore. So, if you feel stuck, if action feels heavy, if your I am work isn't landing, don't ask, well, what am I doing wrong? Ask, from whom am I operating from? Because identity creates origin, origin creates orientation, and orientation creates momentum. When you get the first one right, everything else follows. Well, I hope this makes sense, and if it landed for you, let me know in the comments or post below. This is the work that lights me up and gives me purpose when I can see people making change like this. Now, this year in my free school community and here on this channel, we'll be exploring more topics like this so you can live a life of your choosing with passion and enthusiasm. So make sure you hit that subscribe button or come join me in the community. That's it from me today. I'll see you next week.